Hi, I'm Sara Shaw. I'm here to talk about my experience with anorexia and about the new Netflix movie To the Bone that premiered on Friday. You can ask me questions, we can talk, I can give you tips on how to have nice hair. I don't know. But I would love to hear from you. I'd love to talk to you. I can tell you what I thought about the movie. I watched it with my husband on Saturday. It was real dramatic when we sat down to watch it. We're like, okay, we're gonna watch this. It's gonna be okay, because one of the big fears is that it was going to be really triggering for anorexia survivors. Um, so for me, it wasn't, and I think it's because I make a living talking about it with my program, and I've been really open about sharing my story with friends and family and you guys, basically whoever at this point. Um, but yeah, I had a lot of thoughts about it. If you've seen it, um, you'll you'll know that it came out on Friday. It's available on Netflix. It stars Lily Collins, who did a great job. She's beautiful. She was amazing, um, and I think for me, they got a lot of the stuff right. Um, oh, I got a question. Thank you. I'm really excited. It says, when did you know for sure you were anorexic? Do you know what's weird? Not until long after I was hospitalized for treatment. Um, I think for a while I really thought that I sort of maybe had some of the qualities of somebody who might be anorexic, but obviously I wasn't. I was fine. Like those girls are crazy, and I'm not. I'm great. I'm totally fine. And so even when I was in a hospital with 11 other girls, doing the same things that they were doing and thinking the same things that they were thinking and having a weight that was dangerously low, I still thought, oh, no, there must be something different about me, something kind of unique. And it honestly wasn't until years later that I was able to come to terms with the fact that yeah, I was just anorexic. That was it. That wasn't anything special or some new thing that was just mine. That's what it was. So that was a really good question. How did it develop? Did it happen overnight, no food, or gradually? It's a really good question. Um, so the short story is that it didn't happen overnight, but it developed kind of quickly. When I went to college, I went to Penn State. Um, love Penn State. My whole family went there, and I didn't really know what to do with myself, I guess. There were a lot of things that contributed, I think. And yeah, for a lot of reasons that I spent, years in therapy trying to figure out, I stopped eating. Not it, I know that's a simple statement and an oversimplification of a really big problem, but for me, that's how it started. And I found that as you do when you stop eating, I lost weight. And of course, when people lose weight, the immediate the immediate response from anybody is like, "Wow, good job! Like you've done so well." Whether they needed to or not, it's like this great accomplishment that happens. So for me, it was it. That's how it started, and then it just went in, it went way too far. I went into a really dark place. The positive reinforcement stopped and turned negative, but by that time I was so consumed that I couldn't turn it around at that point. It says, next question, when you finally knew that you had anorexia, what do you wish someone had said to you or told you about? What is something you would personally say to someone suffering from anorexia? You guys are asking such good questions. What's crazy is that when this story came out last week, a lot of my friends from high school and college reached out to me and said that they wished they had said something or done something or helped more. And I felt bad about that because I don't know that there's much they could have done. I think if initially the response hadn't been so overwhelmingly positive, it might have gone to the place that it did. But I think for me, that was my journey. I wish that, I don't know. That's a really good question. I don't I don't know if anyone could have said anything or done anything that would have made a difference. Did you feel that the movie was an accurate representation of anorexia? What would you have changed or taken out? Guys, I didn't like the movie. Surprise. I mean, I probably wasn't going to like it anyway, because, like, anorexia isn't exciting and it's not, like, action packed and glamorous, and you're not going to make a movie about something that's, like, lonely and sad and shameful. So, yeah, there was a lot I didn't like. I think they had a lot of the details right. A lot of the things that Lily Collins' character did really stuck with me. Like the arm thing, she kept like putting her fingers around her arm to see if she could get her fingers like this around all the way around her arm. And I used to do the same thing on my leg, and so with like this, and so that was right. A lot of the details were right. I think the depiction of treatment was troubling, because I think when you watch it and you're like, oh my gosh, it's like everybody's in a big house all together and there's boys and there's parties and dances and best friends and it's so great, and that's inaccurate. I've been out of the game for a while, but I don't know any treatment facility that would have that loose of supervision or encourage that kind of I don't want to say fraternization because that sounds dumb, but that's what I mean. And I don't know, my treatment facility wouldn't let me fidget with my legs because they thought I was trying to exercise. I don't think they'd be cool with the dance party. And so I think, I don't know, I think they oversimplified some things. I think the main character was still depicted, my friend put it really great today, when I was talking to her about this. She called her a manic pixie dream girl. And that's exactly what she was. She was quirky and funny and cool, and sure, she was very sick, and that was portrayed accurately, but she still made funny jokes, and she was entertaining to watch. And I've known a lot of anorexic girls, and they're not entertaining to watch. It's like sad. It's sad to watch them, and it's sad to be near them. So I think that was off. It says, how do you think we can best combat these kinds of body images with our own daughters? I have 2 daughters, right? That's been my biggest fear. And as soon as I found out I was having daughters, I was excited, and then I cried because I couldn't imagine what I would do if something like this happened to one of them. And so I think the best things are to talk openly and honestly about our bodies and how strong they are and what we can do with them, and not treat them as objects for somebody else to really talk about and make judgments on. Like, to own our bodies and feel good and strong about them, rather than let classmates or even doctors sometimes, with all this crazy BMI talk, tell us what to think about our own bodies. And then just be aware that eating disorders are really, really common, and the first signs of them sometimes crop up as early as kindergarten. So just be aware, listen for things like diet or fat or other words that if I hear in my house, I might panic. I might lose it. Oh. How did you hide it? What lengths did you go? That's a good question too. So probably didn't hide it all that well, it turns out. I think I thought I was this master con artist, but probably everybody knew. For a while though, I was away at school and nobody knew what I was doing, so I could say anything I wanted. After a year, I wasn't allowed to go back, so I was living at home, and it was more difficult then. And so I lied. I lied about everything. What I don't want to do right now is give tips on how to lie about an eating disorder, but I became so good at telling my parents and family and friends things that were just flat out not true, but clever enough to make them a little bit believable. If I was not allowed to exercise But of course I did. I would just in my room before anybody was awake or after everybody went to sleep. I told everybody that I was like having a hard time eating around other people, so I had to like be alone. Lie, I just wasn't eating. Um, I never, I, a lot of people who have eating disorders will sometimes dress in baggy clothes or lots of layers to try to cover up what their body looks like. And I didn't necessarily do that, although it was winter time when things got really, really bad for me. But I mostly just lied, if I'm being honest. Next question is, in your story, you were hiding a lot from your parents. What do you want them to know now? That's a good question. I know I keep saying that, but it is a good question. I'm not lying. Ha! Not anymore. Just kidding. What do I want them to know now? Well, I think what I most want them to know is that it's not their fault. My mom, who I think is watching this, every time I go out and do a talk about everything, or when I was doing this story, she always wants to know, like, did they ask about us? Did they say anything about me? Do they think I'm a horrible mother? What were they saying? And people do ask about them a lot because they were there. But it's not, my friend Kara, who I met in the treatment center, has a mom who has thought similar things, and she says to her, nobody's that powerful, and that's true. Next question. Oh, not question, just comment. It says, I read your story, and you're an amazing person for sharing your journey. I wish you the best in life. That's so nice. Thanks. How do you have 3 kids and look this amazing always? What's your secret for not looking tired ever? That I don't know. That's ridiculous. I do have 3 kids though. They're super cute. I have little twinsy girls who are 2 and a son who is 4. So I've got lots of little ones in the chaos in my house. How did pregnancy affect your relationship with your body? That was tough because the expectation right off the bat is, congratulations, you have a child living inside you. And guess what? You're going to gain so much weight. And also, everybody's going to talk about how much weight you do or don't gain all the time. Like suddenly it's okay to like touch your body and talk about your body. And if you gain too much weight, then you've somehow failed at being a mother. And if you don't gain enough, then you don't care about your baby. And so with both pregnancies, for me, it was a challenge. If I'm being really honest, it was tough knowing that I had to gain weight to have healthy babies. For me, once I was pregnant enough that I was obviously pregnant and I could feel like a baby or babies moving around inside me, then I was okay. Like, then it was just me and the baby, you know what I mean? And everybody else could shove it, really. But up until that point, like if you've been pregnant or if you have kids, that weird period, right, where you are gaining weight, but maybe it just looks like you ate too much at lunch. And also nobody knows you're pregnant yet because you're not supposed to tell anybody yet. And so it's awkward and weird. And it also sort of takes that ownership of your own body away because you're giving it to another human being for about 9 months, which is uncomfortable. If you know someone in recovery, is it ever okay to comment on how much or little they are eating, even if it's coming from a place of concern? I think it depends on how well you know the person. I don't think if you're like coworker down the hall that you met at a Christmas party and you like kicked back a few too many, suddenly doesn't join you at lunch, you should rush into her office and say, hey, you okay? You eating? You good? But I think if you're close friends with somebody and you're worried, I think it's appropriate to talk to them about it if you have that kind of relationship. And if it's something that they talk about openly, like I talk about it, and so if somebody's worried, sure. Now, what you maybe shouldn't do is say things like, hey, I notice you have lost a lot of weight. hope everything's okay, because there's still that little bit of anorexia back in the back of your head, no matter how recovered you are, that is like, thank you, even if that's not how they mean it. Or if they gain a little bit of weight, obviously, that's not something you usually talk about with friends anyway, because again, regardless of the person's health, gaining weight is seen as a failure and losing is seen as a success. And that's a messed up thing that happens in our society that is a problem. But yeah, so I think if you're close friends with somebody, talk about it. Be open. You can say to them, like, is everything okay? And maybe they'll open up a dialogue with you. The next question is, what is something you did like about the movie or really resonated with you? So what I love about the movie is that people are talking about it, and they were real about it. There have been a lot of Lifetime movies about eating disorders that have been just, Lifetime movies. They're like fluffy and fun and like poof, everything's better at the end. Hooray. And I think that wasn't the case with this movie. I think they, like I said earlier, I think they got the details right. I think a lot of it was accurate. I think the main character was relatable in the tics that she had, or the little like obsessions and compulsions that she lived with. I thought all of that was real, and the family relationship and the family dynamic that was portrayed was really nice, and that she was shown to have a supporting family that wasn't perfect. Like, she wasn't coming from a crazy, distorted, dysfunctional family. She wasn't coming from a perfect family. It was kind of a nice, normal dynamic that I think a lot of people could relate to. So I thought that was nice. Oh, I read that you and your husband are currently on a vegan diet. Do you think this type of restrictive diet may influence the way your children view their eating habits? Yeah, so maybe. My kids are raised vegetarian because, I live in central Pennsylvania, and I think sometimes saying vegan is a little bit off-putting for people. And so I am going to make it really clear to them that their diet is their choice eventually. I mean, just like you're not going to have your kids right now who are like, I've decided that from now on I'm only going to eat chocolate cake. That's my choice. Same thing. They're going to be given the opportunity to make their own choices regarding diet and food. And for me, the big thing is those conversations are going to start happening early. So what they'll say, like, this is why mom and dad are on a vegan diet. This is why we don't eat animals. Animals are our friends. But they're vegetarian, which I think is pretty common. And what I really didn't want is for them to show up at birthday parties and say things like, I can't have the cake, I'm vegan, or no pizza for me, because that might be tough for a little kid who can't really put into words why his parents have made these decisions. So vegetarian's pretty normal, pretty acceptable, and if they decide they don't want that anymore, then that's cool, Next question is, what should I do if I suspect someone has an eating disorder? Oh, man. Well, I think the easy answer would be to talk to them, encourage them to seek help. But I think a lot of the times, by the time you suspect someone has an eating disorder, things are probably farther along than you think. So I guess the best thing is maybe not to confront them, again, depending on the relationship you have with that person, but just, be their friend, be there and be the kind of person who they know they can talk to about anything, any kind of issue. What I wouldn't do is, run them down, hand them a pamphlet on anorexia, and then be like, talk to you soon. But I would just be the kind of person who they feel comfortable supporting. And you can say, like, hey, I've noticed, you seem a little bit like something might be up. If you want to talk, I'm here. That might be what I'd say. The next question is full recovery from an eating disorder possible? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know anybody who has had an eating disorder who is fully recovered. I think it's I think it's kind of just part of you. And so this is my thought. Not being like a fortune teller or a medical professional. I think probably not. I think you can live a life that is fully recovered from an eating disorder, but I don't necessarily think that those thoughts ever go away. At least not for anybody I've talked to, and that's a lot of people at this point. So, how do you avoid negative body talk with your female friends? I do not stand for it, first of all, or with anybody really. I think females in particular, but everybody tend to love talking about the weight they need to lose or the stomach that they don't like or how their arms are flabby. It's like this self-deprecating like consciousness that we all sort of play into, and then it becomes this social game then like for me to say it too, or for you to join in and say what you don't like that scene in Mean Girls. And so for me, I just don't I don't stand like I don't let people talk about how losing weight or gaining weight is going to make them feel better about themselves. We do talk about maybe why they think that. Like why is that playing such a big part in your self-worth? And maybe let's talk about the other awesome things about you that have nothing to do with how much you weigh or how much you don't weigh. So yeah, I think that's probably the best one. If you don't mind sharing, what are some aspects of anorexia you are still struggling with, and how do you fight it? So I think for me, it's like the thoughts that pop up. It's not like an everyday, like I wake up and think, okay, today I better eat, or today I'm not going to eat. It's not like that. It's just, when you least expect it in a certain situation, like I'll put on a pair of jeans and they're tighter than they were before, and I'm like, uh-oh. And then for one split second, I'm like, well, I guess I can just not eat for the rest of the day and it'll be fine. The difference is now I'm like, nope, that's bad. We don't want to do that. And I think I said earlier is that I don't have scales in my house. I don't weigh myself. I don't let myself be weighed at doctor's appointments, which is always a little weird for the poor intake nurse who is like, what? You're not going to get on the scale? Okay, I'm going to write that you want to get on the scale? And I'm like, no. So I think that's the best. What was the turning point for you? I don't know. I don't think there was one. I think certainly after I was hospitalized, I went not right back into my old behaviors because I was being watched a lot more closely. And I had this like defiant fear that I was going to be sent back into the hospital against my will, which was the threat. So I didn't want that to happen. But for me, it was years. I don't know. I think at some point, I just figured out it wasn't worth it anymore. It was figuring out for me, like what else made me happy, and then remembering what happiness felt like, and remembering that I wanted to keep having that feeling. But it was a long time. How do you think eating disorders are generally portrayed in movies and television? I think glamorized is the wrong word. I don't think anybody thinks they're glamorous. I think romanticized is maybe the right word. Sort of like this like sad little waif who you want to like hold and save, and everything's going to be okay. I think the reason for that is something I said a little bit earlier, is that nothing about an eating disorder is something you want to see in a movie. Nothing about a real life eating disorder. It's lonely, it's repetitive. It's the same things over and over and over, day after day after day. And they're long, and it's grueling and painful and scary. And I think none of that's appealing in like a movie heroine or hero. Somebody said, Andy Shaw, that's my husband. How did you land this girl? Bribes. Money. He paid me. Just kidding. We met. He's pretty great. That's all. Hey, Sarah, popping in to show support. Awesome how you are sharing your story. Thanks, Logan. Thank you so much. They're asking really good questions. What do you hear when you speak at colleges? Oh, that's a good one because it's been amazing. So I started speaking at colleges a few years ago, and for the first one I ever did, I was so scared because I'd never told my story in such detail, and I was terrified. I thought they were going to look at me like I was nuts. I thought they were going to think mean things, and I'm always very afraid about mean things. I don't know. I was afraid I'd forget. I don't know. But it was great, and I've heard a lot of people come up to me afterwards and talk about their own issues or questions, or a friend they have, or a family member who they want to help. But what's amazing is that they've asked such thoughtful, insightful questions. And a lot of times at colleges, professors will offer extra credit for coming to hear speakers like me. And so I think a lot of people come with just, they're just going to hang out and like sit around for an hour. And everybody, every time, is so engaged and so thoughtful. So I hear a lot of people want to know the details. They want to know the same kinds of things you guys are asking. But they also, what I make really clear is that like they can ask me anything. I'm fine answering anything. They ask about my family. A lot of them ask like what it was like being in a mental institution. Not good. So there's the answer to that. So yeah, it's great stuff. It was that weird moment where I was after my first presentation, I was like, oh, this is what I should be doing. Because it was just so great. Are there any community resources and support groups you have found helpful, or do you find a solo recovery to be easiest? So there are community resources. For college students, their college campuses have resources on them. The National Eating Disorder Association has a hotline where you can call and talk and get help from somebody whenever, which is great. I would avoid like Facebook groups or like online forums because there's a pro-Anna movement that's been going on for years where people are on these websites like supporting each other to become anorexic or to get eating disorders. Like it's a fun goal. But I don't think solo recovery is the right word either. I was really lucky when I was in treatment to meet some really awesome people who are still really good friends of mine. And I don't know where I'd be if I couldn't call them sometimes, especially like when I was pregnant, even recently, and say things like sobbing, crying, and saying like, I feel so fat, and I don't want to be like that, but I don't want to care, but I do. And they get it, and they talk me down. So it's great having people who understand and have been there. Do you have any lasting health problems as a result of your eating disorder? Yes. I have osteopenia, which is bone density loss. It's like the prequel to osteoporosis. And you can't really get that back. Like I could like keep it where it is. And that's pretty much it for that. I have a weird heart thing that I'm sort of actually getting looked at right now. Like every now and then my heart will kind of just start racing and I get dizzy a lot, and I think that's kind of related too. So a lot of the effects are long term, so waiting to find out. Do you have any advice for parents to help a child who struggles with anorexia? What is beneficial and what makes things worse? I wish my mom was here. She might have some advice. I think the tough thing is, and this is like hard to say, is that I know you want to like believe that your kids are honest and they're telling you the truth. And I will say this flat out, and I think it might be a generalization, but I don't care. I'm saying it. People with eating disorders are really good liars. So as much as you can, call them out on that if you're their parent. Um, don't believe everything they say to you all the time. Um, and and again, just be that person who they can talk to and not be scared. Um, for me, like with my daughters, they're two, so it's a little early, but I'm trying to start having conversations early, so they know that like they will not be going on a diet in my house. I'm really nervous about putting them in things like gymnastics or dance, because I know that eating disorders crop up there more often. So I think part of it is being proactive, and part of it is just open conversations. And I think you asked if there's anything you should not say. And I don't think there's ever any hard and fast rule about what you should or shouldn't say. In the movie, they made a lot of like, her family was trying to sort of make jokes, or they made her a cake that looked like a hamburger. Like, obviously, that's not a great idea. Um, I wouldn't try to. I wouldn't try to force feed them. First of all, you can't, and second of all, that's not going to build a relationship that's trusting, like, at all. Are there any books you'd recommend about eating disorders? Oh, yes, and I wish I'd thought of thinking about that beforehand, because some of them are terrible. Like some of the earlier ones. There's a book called, I think it's called Solitaire. Um, is awful. It's like a how-to guide, like step by step. Here's what you do. Um, there is a book called Wasted. No, nope, nope, that's wrong. Might have to get back to you on that one, because I'm pretty bad at remembering exact book titles. But there are some really good ones. There is a book, Portia de Rossi's book is really nice. It provides an interesting perspective, I thought. Can you break dance? No, I can't. I'm not actually, honestly, not really a great dancer in general. I did a lot of musicals, and had a really hard time learning the choreography. I don't think anybody really liked having me in that aspect of it. But thanks. If do you want to teach me? Because I could maybe, I don't know. I was really good at Dance Dance Revolution. Do you find those with eating disorders start with bulimia before anorexia? No, I don't. So the most commonly diagnosed eating disorder currently is EDNOS, eating disorder not otherwise specified. And it's a problem because what it does is it takes all these different aspects of different eating disorders and sort of picks and chooses what what the person suffering from it is going to deal with. But usually, I think the two start out very separate, sometimes intertwine. But if this is again kind of a generalization, I think it's a lot of times one or the other, with maybe just like a little touch of the other one popping in there. How do you feel when you are around friends that are losing weight or dieting? Not great. I'm not real supportive of it, because I think I mean, let's be honest, like there is an obesity epidemic in the United States, and that's a problem. But I don't think dieting is the answer. I don't ever think that's the right way to go about things. So I usually just don't mention it at all, which I think makes them angry, because usually you're losing weight hoping to get noticed. At least, I mean, regular people, and I don't do that because I don't care. I mean, I care, but that's not going to affect my friendship with you or my feelings on you as a person. And so I don't want people to be doing that. I get that sometimes like losing weight is healthy for your body and for your health, but I don't think diets are the way to go. How did you get to a point where you are comfortable sharing with the world that you have an eating disorder? It was in grad school. So I was writing my thesis on anorexia and my experiences. And so as part of that, it was a really small program, and we had to share a lot of what we were writing, and it was awful. I was so embarrassed, and I kept apologizing, like that classic terrible woman thing to do, like apologizing for everything that's not their fault. And so it was 2 years of that, and then by the end of it, we had to read from our thesis in front of the whole program and alumni and a bunch of people. And I read and I liked it because it was like I was controlling my own narrative, and I felt really good about it. And my professor that semester called me and said, you were great like at talking about it. Like I felt like that's maybe something you should do a little bit more of. So yeah, it was in grad school. I started off kind of hating it, like thinking it was like really awful and awkward. And but then it was great. And then not great. I think I said like when I first started talking about it to large groups of people, I was terrified the first couple times. And then even when this story came out, I was so nervous. Oh my gosh. I was like, what if everybody thinks I'm crazy? And like, what if everybody knows? And what if they say mean things? Remember I said like I hate mean things? So yeah, it took a little while, but I don't know. I think it's helpful to talk about it, right? Like, and I'm okay. Like I'm okay, and it's nice probably for somebody who is suffering right now to look and see that like they can have a happy life, and things are good. They can be good, and you can find that happiness too. My mom just commented. She said, "We believed you." I know you did, Mom. That's the point. It's not your fault. I mean, I was lying like crazy. And I was such a nice, like, I was a really good kid, you guys. Like, I didn't drink in high school or college. I didn't, like, party. I didn't even have a curfew because I didn't need one. I was very into rules. So, like, why not believe me? I was a great kid. How did your husband get to a point where he is supportive without harping on you about how much you're eating or if you're not eating? How did he get to that point? And he sometimes still does, but it comes from a place of concern when he does. I think he's just a good guy, you know? I wouldn't have married him otherwise. He's a nice, like, real sensitive and, like, likes to talk about feelings like I do. So I think when you first start dating someone, you're really careful about what you say and what you do. And the fact that I shared really openly with him about, here's where I've been and this is what I've been through, was probably a lot of trial and error, but I think it just evolved over time, I guess. What's the best way someone can be a friend to you now? Aside from watching Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, which is a really good show, and then talking to me about it, that's one way. I'm just kidding. I think just chat, I have a great little friend group with two other girls who I think probably didn't love always talking about feelings and hopes and dreams and like sadness and seriousness and things all the time, and now they do, or they don't like it and still just do it anyway. But I think for me and for anybody else in this position, like it's important to talk about things because I spent years not talking about it at all. And so I retreated really, really deep inside of myself, and that was a scary place to be when you're all by yourself. So for me, and even in my marriage, like it's important to address everything all the time right away, which I'm sure isn't annoying at all. But like everything, I've got to, I want to talk about it. My kids are going to love that, I bet, when they get a little older. They're going to be real excited. What are 5 things you really love? Oh, man. Okay. Whew. Oh, there's so many things. Okay. Number 1, my family. Like right, obviously. But I don't think you want to know that because they're, everybody loves their family. I really love teaching spin class at the gym. That's really fun. I really love hummus. I hope this isn't like my only chance in life to list 5 things that I really love. Otherwise, I just know I'm going to blow it because so far I have spin class and hummus. I like the show Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, also Game of Thrones. I don't know if you saw it last night, but winter came. And traveling, obviously. Yeah, that's like my favorite thing. I think all I want in life is to like go other places and see things, and that's what you do. Yeah, you go other places and see things. Do you think anorexia is about control? Are people who are more type A more likely to have issues? I do think that. I don't know that. I don't think there's any. So the tricky thing is that there's no like formula to figuring out what happens. But for me, it was. I think for me, it was I had figured out a part of my life that I had complete control over, and I didn't want to let that go. And that's actually something that stuck with me for years. Like I have a really hard time letting go of control of things in my life. So I do think so, yeah. Is wine vegan? Thank God, yeah. Yeah, it is. I actually, so, oh God, some vegan out there is gonna like knock me on this. I'm actually pretty sure there are some that are not. And I think probably if I was like a great vegan, I would check. But I don't because I like wine. Oh, my husband just reminded me, Hamilton. I love Hamilton. Who doesn't love that? That's a cliche though. Okay, now people are just commenting with other things that I love. I do also love candy corn. Thank you. Yes, I do. Someone earlier questioned what was your turning point for recovery, but when did you finally realize that it was more than just a disciplined weight loss and actually a problem or eating disorder? I knew it was a problem 6 months in. I don't think I knew that. Well, I was denying that it was an eating disorder. I actually have journal entries from my freshman year of college where I write things like, something's wrong with me. I don't know what. I don't know why I need to keep losing all this weight. I know I'm not anorexic. Come on, Sarah. So I knew there was a problem pretty early on, and I definitely thought I could take care of it myself for years. Like for years, I thought that I could take care of it myself. And it wasn't until years after I was hospitalized and at a healthy weight again that I was able to kind of come to terms with the fact that it was anorexia. Oh, are you able to look back on some of your darker times from a place of comedy? If so, do you find it helpful? That's a great question. So I do improv comedy with the Oxymorons, super funny. And yeah, so when I was doing that reading I was talking to you about in my grad school, there was another woman who was there who was talking about her thesis was on the Girl Scouts and like the history of the Girl Scouts, and she was going to bring cookies for everybody to her reading. And I was like, oh, I should bring celery sticks and make everybody do sit-ups while I read mine. So yeah, everything's better. Everything's better if you can find out why it's funny. Because I mean, most things are really funny. Even all of this, like there's humor in it. Although Netflix listed or IMDb listed To the Bone as a comedy, which I think is a stretch. Because of your journey with anorexia, have you been able to spot it in others? What do you do? Yes, I have. I've got like this like beacon for eating disorders. If it's somebody I know or somebody that I'm close with, then I address it. Not really like a attack on them. And in fact, some of my friends, if I notice have maybe lost a lot of weight or like really rapidly or something in their behavior has changed, I'm like the first one who's like, hey, I love you. Are you okay? Do you want to talk? Like, you know my history. Like, I'm here. Do you want to talk? Like, we can talk. Most of the time, though, that's not the case. And it's people I interact with kind of peripherally, and there's nothing I can do. I've thought about that. I think the best thing I can do is make myself somebody who people know is around and can talk about it and gets it and isn't going to think you're nuts. Um, but that's it. I think that's all you can do. There are wines that aren't vegan, but more importantly, you just said you are against dieting. I'm confused. Vegan diet is a diet. Okay, sure. So you're correct. I'm against, when I say dieting, like I mean like as a verb. Like, not against certain diets. Like some people might have a gluten-free diet, or I have a vegan diet. I don't have a vegan diet with the intention that I'm going to lose weight or keep weight off or um, anything like that. I mean, and so I mean it like as a verb, like you're actively dieting, like restricting what you eat with the purpose of making your body into something different. That's sort of what I mean. Do twins run in your family? Kind of, but not really. My great grandfather was a twin, but that's it. They don't pop up everywhere. They just, surprise, in my belly, and then in my house. Love you and your family, and thank you for opening up about your story. You're welcome. Thank you. My family's, they're sweet. They're nice. They're great. Oh, somebody else just said, Katie, I think being vegan is more about making an environmentally / health conscious choice as opposed to calorie restriction in the typical sense of the word diet. That's a better way of putting it than I did. You're right. That's what I meant. Central PA, are there local resources, support groups, treatment facilities? There is one in Hershey. There are resources everywhere, and luckily we have the internet, because I don't know, other than I know there's a really great place in Hershey, and locally I know like most communities have therapists who specialize in talking to girls with body issues, and I'm sorry, I don't mean just girls, people with body issues and eating disorder issues, body image issues. So I know that yeah, there are places everywhere. What I'd love to see is more of that. Maybe some like more organic groups crop up locally of people who just want to have a place to talk about these things and not feel afraid that they're going to get like dinged for saying the wrong thing, or marked as one thing or another. I think that would be great. I think with an eating disorder or not, there are conversations that everybody wants to have, but there's not really a venue just in life to have those. Somehow it's acceptable to talk about your weight loss, like they have The Biggest Loser on TV. I don't know if that's still a show. I hope not. It's stupid. But they have, there are lots of arenas to talk about like losing weight. But there's no real place to talk just about like how you feel living inside of your body every day, and how that can be challenging and confusing. And so yeah. To answer your question, yes. Somebody commented on PennLive that this is a rich white girl issue. How do you feel about that? So I think part of that is that in fiction, like in movies and TV and literature and books, that's who you see, right? You see like wealthy white girls, and they're like so sad little stories and what's going on there. It's not accurate. There are, I think, and I want to be careful, not because I don't want to speak out of turn. Like I'm not, again, a mental health professional. But I think the bigger issue is that since that's how they've always been portrayed, it's easier for that demographic to speak up and seek help. I think eating disorders are really, really easily undiagnosed and missed in other populations, which I think is another thing that maybe we could start talking about a little bit more. What is the best depiction of anorexia you've seen? I don't know. I don't think. I think the best things I've seen haven't been fiction. They've been. Oh, got it. and it's not really a depiction, but there's a documentary called Thin, um, which follows a treatment facility and several different girls who were in it, in and out of the facility, and it's great. That was difficult to watch because that was for me, very, very not triggering, but it just brought back a lot of memories in a way that movies that are fiction and like TV shows don't. What types of changes would you like to see in the media to lessen the negative impacts on body image for young people? I do not have time to answer. That's so many things. Like, so many things. Number one, stop trying to promote this idea that a woman is super skinny and perfectly made up and their hair is great all the time. Like, that's what we see. That's what's flashed at us all the time. Stop talking about celebrities when they gain weight as if they have committed a horrible crime. Stop putting normal-sized people on TV and calling them fat. I don't know if you've seen the show The Mindy Project, Mindy Kaling. So she's like the best. She's so smart and so funny. And she has this show, and she's the protagonist. She writes it. She is, it's her show. It's all hers. And she is pretty normal size, like compared to an average American woman, a pretty normal size. But on every episode, she makes a self-deprecating fat joke, which reads as, a normal, pretty, like, smart, beautiful woman, still not good enough, still fat, still. Those are the changes. Like, just, it's hard because we want to watch things that are exotic and interesting, and I don't know if people would think it was so interesting if, like, normal people showed up on all the movies, but I would hope so. I think maybe we watch things so we can relate to them, and I think it'd be a little easier to do that if relatable people were there. And then, stop talking about people when they gain weight or lose weight. It's none of your business. Have you ever put on clothes and had a panic attack because they're beginning to feel tighter? Yeah. Especially because I don't weigh myself. There's not a scale in my house because I don't want to wake up in the morning beholden to a number that I see. I can't do that. So yeah, definitely. And then I wonder too, like, is that like the anorexia talking, or is that just something that happens to people? So yeah, for me, like, there's this little flash of, oh no, like that same panic I had when I was really, really ill, when I would wonder things like, if I start gaining weight, I'm never going to stop. Like, I knew that biologically my metabolism was messed up. And so I had this fear, even though the logical Sarah knew that was not correct. Eating disorder Sarah was like, yep, you're going to gain weight forever. You're never going to stop. You're going to be huge and then just explode, basically. And so, yeah, there's still a little bit of that happens. So I try really hard to just remember to be healthy. So all of my choices are based on, like, am I putting, like, food wise, am I putting things into my body that are healthy? I mean, not all of my choices. I like things that are not super healthy too. But that's the balance I try to find. Insurance companies are a real issue when it comes to eating disorders. How can we change this? I don't know, but they are. It's so crazy. I think, insurance companies there's a lot wrong with all that right now, and has been for a while. So I think, again, just the more we talk about it and make it more of an issue, and that's what the movie To the Bone does really well, is it's a mainstream venue to talk about eating disorders and recognize them for the illnesses that they are, and not, crash diets. What do you think is the most positive / least damaging way to compliment someone on the way they are outwardly presenting to the world without being triggering to someone who may be struggling? I don't know. I think when you start to do that, you start to overthink it. And I guess the best way to do that is just to be honest and be genuine. I've said before, like, you need to stop talking about like specifically pregnant women, because I can relate to that having been pregnant. You got to stop talking about like how much weight they have gained or lost, and instead say things like, you look really happy, like you look beautiful, you look like I think you're going to be a great mom. And I think you can say that those same kinds of things positively about someone, like you look really happy, like you look beautiful, you look wonderful, you look amazing. You don't have to say, have you lost weight? Or if you know, by the same token, you can say things like if you're worried, like if you're thinking maybe it's too much or you want to express concern, maybe express things like, you don't seem like yourself. Is there anything we can talk about? You know, seem like something's bothering you. I don't know why, but I feel like something's up. Same kind of thing. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Other than Crazy Ex-Girlfriend and Game of Thrones, what shows do you like? Guys, so many shows. Before I had kids, I never watched TV. And then, you know, for a little while, they're just kind of blobs on your lap. So it's what you do. Okay, so I really love those two shows. Really into America's Got Talent this summer. Even though I generally don't like those kind of competition shows. I don't know if you've seen Black Mirror on Netflix, but if you want to get messed up in the head, it's really great. I just started watching Handmaid's Tale. What's happening there? Is anybody else watching? I mean, it's nuts. Crazy Ex-Girlfriend is a really good one. I really loved Parenthood when it was on. Friday Night Lights. Getting the tears. What are some of your coping methods / healing methods, like journaling, etc.? I don't journal, which is just me. Like journaling is great. I'm not great at it. I get too stuck up in my head, and I have to go back and edit and make sure things look perfect and erase, and that's not the point. So for me, it's talking. I have some friends who are sounding boards, and I have, you know, good people who I know I can just talk to, and that's it. There are people who I'm still really close with, who I've been friends with since middle school, one person who I can call like at any time of the night and say really crazy things, and she'll talk me down, or at least talk me through it, you know, not make me feel crazy about it. Have you ever felt really judgmental about other girls' weight? Yeah, probably. Especially when I was really sick, for sure. That's part of it. You know what I mean? I was not great. Especially too in the confines of the treatment center I was in. Everybody compared everybody themselves to everybody else, and like who's sicker, who's thinnest, who looks the worst, who does all of that. And anymore, no. Other than I think I probably am a little bit oversensitive. When people start to lose weight, I get nervous. I get worried, and I might get a little judgy about that. But it comes from a place of concern. Otherwise, no. It doesn't have a place for me now. I do sometimes get judgmental about other things, but I mean we all do. But not for me, not weight. Like that is like absolutely zero things to do with who you are as a person. So I think it's like 1 minute away from when we have to wrap up. Oh, one more question. It says, I have a friend that is bulimic. She knows it and has asked for advice. I've never experienced this. Any advice? So I hope I understand the question right. So I think what you're asking is, she asked for advice from you on how to deal with it. I think, as I've sort of said, the best thing you can do is to just like be that sounding board, in a way that she can tell you what she's feeling, like the thoughts she's having, and the behaviors she's engaging in are probably, or might sound really kind of nuts to you, or really different. Or, you know, you might wonder, why would somebody do that? And those are things you should not say out loud. just be that person who can listen, and that's it. It's not your job to fix it. You're not going to be able to. But maybe look around for a local support group, or find somebody like who you know who could talk to her, or could be a person she could talk to. And I think, I feel like I've said this a bunch of times, but I think the biggest thing is just to talk about it, because that's what people with eating disorders don't do. They don't talk about it until they're forced to in therapy, and nobody wants to be forced to do anything. That doesn't help. So it's time to be done. Oh, it's not. Just kidding. I thought it was. There is another question that says, is there one thing in specific that was said to you in treatment that you still tell yourself today? No. No, I wish there was. I wish there was. I think the best things that came out of treatment, I think eating disorder treatment has a long way to go, because I think the treatment is symptomatic of the disease, and that's why the treatment centers tend to be revolving doors, and people show up again and again and again. So no, and to be honest, I didn't engage fully or at all in therapy there, but I made some friends, and those are people that almost make it worth it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what I'd do without them. So no, I wish there was. I wish there was like a great like one-liner that was like, that'll do it, and that's what I say to myself, but there's not. And so now it is actually for real time to be all done. So please, get in touch if you want to keep talking. Obviously, I like to talk. You can email me. My website is sarashawspeaking.com, and all my contact information is there if you want to chit chat or talk about a show. I probably watch it. If you want to watch a show, I probably watch it. I watch all the shows. Wish I didn't, but I do. So yeah, get in touch. Thank you so much. I love answering these kinds of questions because it gives me hope that people are listening, not like to my story, which is also nice that people listen, but that people are engaging in these conversations and hoping maybe to change things for like my daughters. You know what I mean? I would love my daughters to grow up in a world where the kinds of the pressure and the things that I felt aren't even a thing anymore. So that would be great. Thank you so much. Bye.